Kams audio son. You burn the swine when I want you shine. The tree of life, them I want you climb. Cause them heart no kind. Kams, I say them heart no kind. Buxton Massive. Kidaki. Read that.
Never joke. Never joke. Never joke. Oh, money never, money never, money never, money never, money never, money. Now know what you conniving, money. Money never, money never, money never, money never, money never, money. You can keep your conniving, money. When you in a corruption, in a bill tell me money. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money. When you had your pocket full, in a bill tell me money. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me money. Yes, money never, money never, money, money never, money, money. Now know what you conniving money. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. That's all the money that me walk for. A 2 pound note and a guilda piece. A 2 pound note and a guilda piece. A 2 pound note and a guilda piece. That's all the money that me walk for. I said money never, money never, money, money never, money, money. I don't want you conniving money. Oh, Joseph.
Well, I invoke the WPA's position that we are engaging in civil disobedience and non-cooperation with the government, and on that grounds I refuse to participate in the interview. The question in struggle, is not personal. Whatever sacrifice as a political activist or a political leader you have to make for your people, you have to make it.
Guyana and Guyanese, at home and abroad. Tune in to Guyanese Morning Time, hosted by Kadaki Amsterdam, where the sun always shines. Guyanese Morning Time, the people call it Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people call it Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. We rise up early morning watching Kams TV, where wisdom and knowledge, yes, it is the key. Exposing corruptions over land and sea, where the wicked politician they try to trick me. Guyana is a land for everybody. With 6 races should live in harmony. Is one set of people getting aisle money. Is one set of people doing the thievery. Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. This is a program that you all can see, sharing your views and your integrity. Like it, comment and share it all around. Pass it to your neighbor, safe and sound. A sad situation going on in this town. The voice of the people is getting trampled down. Out of the mouths of babes and sucklings, which Jah has ordained me to sing. I sing Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, fooling the people. You're promoting evil. Stop lying to the people. You are a part of the cycle. Stop fooling people. You're promoting evil. stop lying to the people. Politicians, you are a part of the cycle. I say, Guyanese morning time. The people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese morning time. The people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. They got Rickford, Burke and Mark Benchcop, David Hines and Kadaki Amsterdam, Sherrod Duncan, Nigel London, Normal Brown and Gavin Matthews. Big up Paslow, Port People Governor, Simona Brooms, Robin Simpson, Hampton Green and Winston Jordan. And yes, we can go right on and on. Guyanese morning time. The people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese morning time. The people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again.
The relatives and friends of young Quinton Bacchus, they deserve justice. The family, the relatives and friends of our in Boston, they deserve justice. The family, the relatives and friends of Peter Headley, they deserve justice.
And so when we say that Guyana is an apartheid state, we have the evidence to show.
2nd day of May. Welcome to another program of Guyanese Morning Time. Let's get ready to rock and roll. Good morning, neighbor, morning. How are you doing? What an energy, I tell you. What an energy. Morning, how y'all doing? You know, they says lies, and they says lies, and they says, some one of them, as he say, all these lies is we're going to destroy the PNC. But let me tell y'all something. My lies are accompanied by evidence. When I put it to you, I put it to you. When I put it to you, I back it up with evidence. And then y'all run and go under y'all shells, y'all stones, y'all rocks. Run back into the pit latrines and so on. Because evidence confronting you. Rapid. Evidence and rapid. You can't take the facts. Anything I come here in the mornings and I say, well, XYZ is the case, trust me. Why you think nobody don't run up in my face and talk about this, that, and the other and the next? Yeah? I perhaps am the most gunned after social media influencer within the boundaries of Guyana right now. It's every day, all day, into the night. The PPP and the friends tried to shut me up. Left, right, and center they're trying. It's 4 and 5 of them that has got on my program. Since Kams TV Live, it's 4 and 5 of them that's jump on. Trina get fruit. Lay by the pelter. Trina get fruit, lay by the pelter. But I will continue to confront this government and all those of you who are enabling them with the facts. Look out for some facts. We got some facts to talk about this morning on Guyanese Morning Time. In the meantime, how you been? Yeah. How you been? How have you been? How was you yesterday? How was you last night? How did you get up this morning? You got up on the right side of the bed? You got up on the right side of the bed? I got up on the same side of the bed, but perhaps with a different energy. Y'all ain't gonna match this energy, you know. What people say, asking teeth in the laugh. So I hope you had a good day yesterday. I really hope you had a good day yesterday. It was rainy. It was rainy. Yes, it rained a bit. Yeah, it was rainy. But you know, even when it rains, it's an opportunity. The rain doesn't fall on one man's house top. And so while one man might be complaining that it's raining heavily, another man might be giving praise and thanks to that little rain because it's the only way you will get access to water. Because believe it or not, in some communities across this country, still there's no access to potable water. And not only is there not access to potable water, when you get potable water, or potable water, some people call it, the quality. Imagine in 2023, people are still complaining about the water quality coming through the taps. When just 3 years ago, people were happy with the quality of water coming through the taps for the most part. Right? You understand that? Imagine in 2023, people still are contending with poor water supply and no water supply, or poor water quality and no water supply. Good? So, when it's raining heavily in some areas, some people are glad they're giving thanks to the Creator. Let it rain, let it rain, let it rain. Okay? Pour down the rain. Some people are happy for that. While some people are complaining, my garden will be flooded. Or I'm going to walk through a muddy street. Imagine in 2023, people still have to fret about walking through muddy streets to get home. Right? Boy, I got some revelations. I'm tracking some things. The government of Guyana is doing streets in Annandale. Both Annandale North and South. Let me explain Annandale North and South to you. Annandale North is predominantly Indo-Guyanese. You will find African Guyanese living in Annandale North, but as we say in Linden, Annandale South is predominantly Afro-Guyanese. Y'all want to talk about comparison? Y'all want to talk about discrimination? Y'all want to talk about racism? Y'all want to talk about vindictiveness? Y'all want to talk about crassness of any government? Take a walk through Annandale North. Check out all the streets and the quality of the streets that are done. Right? Then take a walk over Annandale South. They will tell you in the news that they have done streets in Annandale North and South. But one of the things they will not tell you, or will hope that you will never see, is the disparity, the differences in the quality of the streets. With the little rain that fell over the last couple of days, the streets in Annandale South are already getting potholes. They are already getting potholes, those which have been completed, because a large percentage of them remain uncompleted. Incomplete. Yeah, that's the word, incomplete. Right? When I talk about vindictive and cruel and racist government, I don't got to go far for the evidence. It's usually right around the corner. And I usually present it to you. So when y'all come and say lies, 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 they say tell a lie long enough and you eventually will believe it. That is what is happening to some of y'all. Y'all got to stop this nonsense. Guyanese are not stupid. Thank God to social media. At the drop of a pin, it's out there. Good? I want to continue yesterday's discussion. You know what I love with me? A lot of these things I don't have to make notes on, because they've been out there in the public. And who has eyes to see will see. But there's none so blind who refuse to see. Right? So a lot of these things, when I talk about development and the behavior of government, the Granger government versus the Ali government and so on, a lot of the evidence is out there. I don't gotta go and manufacture anything. And I like a long playing record. Yeah, that make people know LP, right? Y'all know LP? Good. 45 and LP? Good. I like a LP. Or should I say like Marabunta? When you raise up the nest, we don't go back and settle just like that. So yesterday I started talking about the behavior of this government when it comes to vendors. Especially African Guyanese vendors. Don't let me run from them. Put on the racist tag one time, because I ain't running from that. New Market Street. The claim wasn't that the stores were shabby looking, because there were caravans out there. In an area delineated, an area identified, an area set aside by the mayor and town council, which has the authority for vending. The Ali government through the ministry that the bishop heads, went in there and cleared out all of those caravans and stopped people from vending there. They did not seek to provide an alternative location for them. And so a lot of those caravans which are owned by single mothers and you know, people who weren't finding work in the system, and people who prefer to work with themselves, are now parked and so on, and they got debts to pay. Some of them took iPad money to buy those things. So there is now a strenuous situation, a tenuous situation between these vendors and iPad and wherever they borrowed money from. Bad debts are being incurred. Interest is rising. How will iPad recoup its money? Because if it were to seize all of those caravans, what will it do with them anyhow? Because if people are not getting placed to sell with their caravans, people will stop buying caravans. Right? Demand is what fuel supplies. And so if you have a situation where people with caravan are being hounded by the government and put out of business, then people will start to sell out their caravans. And when they sell out their caravans or they advertise their caravans for sale, the market might be flooded with caravans for sale. The price goes down. People suffer major losses. But the thing is, even if they advertise their caravans for sale, people want to, or are thinking about entering into the market with caravans might be thinking twice. Why should I buy a caravan when the government going to come and move me from wherever I am anyhow? Right? So understand that. They move those people from New Market Street with caravans. And then they went and moved those, well, I can't remember if it's before or after, but they moved those dog food vendors from around the Rheinveld area there and recently they went to Red Road or whatever the area. I don't know these bank geography good, you know. I could learn it quickly though. I learn what I want to learn. In the vicinity of Amazonia Mall, they went and they tore down those stalls and they removed the caravans and so on. And thanks to Fix Arrows or whoever it was that says, they moved people from in front of Mokoto. So there's no point to my argument. What is my argument? That small business people, micro business owners, predominantly black, are being hounded by this government. The evidence is out there. The evidence is out there. A lot of these people who are operating these caravans, who are doing if you want to call it street food or fast food, are African Guyanese of humble means. And so when the government moves in on them, in short, they're pressuring African Guyanese families because these entities provide for African Guyanese families. And so when you shut down my business, I can no longer put food on the table comfortably. I can no longer reach my rent and utility bills comfortably. I can no longer pay fees for my child to go to a school, a private school especially, where he's getting the kind of support that he needs to achieve academically. I can no longer continue to pay the fees for my child who's at university or provide daily traveling allowance and book expenses and so on. So in short, you are forcing me into a corner that is likely to lead to poverty. Because if I can't educate and provide for my children, the next thing they're likely to be is to fall victim to the preyers out there. Human trafficking, drug trafficking, money laundering, among other things. Right? Sex trafficking. among other things. That's what you're doing. And people are defending that. People are defending that. Across the world, there's vending, there's street corner vending, there's street side vending. One caller yesterday, I think, called and explained how in Barbados they assist those vendors to make their outfit look professional because they're a tourist destination. In Guyana, we believe that if we're promoting tourism, we have to take the unsightly and bury it in a corner without regard to whose lives it will affect. And so we do pavements and avenues and walkways and car parks all around the city with the nation's wealth. And we enable our friends to throw up shiny buildings, glass front buildings with twinkling lights all around the city to give visitors the impression that Guyana is a beautiful place and Guyanese are comfortable. But I got news to you. Guyanese know that they cannot eat brick and mortar. Guyanese know that nice pavements will not fill their bellies and pay their bills. Guyanese know that. And the world knows that. And that is why programs like these are creating a problem for the PPP, because we are bringing the nastiness to the world. So they're trying to hide it by forcing people into the corners of the society. Right? But we will expose it to the world. This government doesn't behave fairly, it doesn't behave justly. Just as an example, when it said it was going to move those people who were squatting straight up the sideline dam area at Annandale, it said to them, we're going to provide house lots to you, we're going to get the bank to guarantee loans to you within 3 months. Based on my calculation, it was done by the end of 7 months. Wouldn't it not be nice for them to say to those vendors that they were moving, we are going to organize an alternative place for you to earn your living? Wouldn't it have been nice for them to make a study of the locale and say, well, we have a plot of land at X location. It's still in the vicinity of where you are vending. And we will arrange for you to go there and sell. You will have to pay a rate, a rent, a fee. Wouldn't it have been better than to just go and remove those people's stalls and leave them living in uncertain terms? But people believe that when you speak against these ills, not only are you anti-government, but you're racist. And I wear that badge. I will wear that badge. But I will continue to make the comparison. And so yesterday I was explaining that when the Granger administration concluded, Patterson was minister in the ministry where Big Old Edgel is right now. When the Granger government decided, listen, This situation is untenable. We need to do something about it. They didn't go and break down stalls and throw out people. They worked with the people to fix the situation. And so when the situation was fixed, first and foremost to note, the beneficiaries of the improved condition were people who were there from the inception. They weren't friends and cronies of the Granger government. If you know Supernaam, for example, you know Supernaam is predominantly what kind of people? For the majority, they don't look like me. But the Granger government didn't look at that to say, well, here, these are most likely supporters of the PPP for the greater part. These are majority Indo-Guyanese and stuff like that. They recognized the social situation which needed addressing, and they did just that. Y'all leave Fitzgerald alone. They sent him to do just that this morning, but I won't be paying attention. So he could continue to mix up his body parts and defecate from his mouth instead of his anus. Right? The Granger government decided, listen, this thing is untenable. It is a safety risk for people who are using the facilities here, and so we're going to fix it. And since I like to lie and so on, I got evidence to them this morning, like I had yesterday. Yesterday I showed you a print story about the development of the Supernaam waterfront. This is a video story. It was done in 2017, I think.
The much anticipated Supernaam waterfront project is near completion. The project, being undertaken by the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, is expected to be a significant asset to Region 2.
The $143 million Supernaam Waterfront Enhancement Project will soon be a major asset to the region, benefiting mostly boating operators, vendors, and visitors as well. Overseeing this project is District Engineer within the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, Saeed Mohammed. The engineer brought InfoHub up to speed with the progress made thus far. See, Defense's works were critical to the structural integrity of the project.
Defense work was basically a steel sheet pile revetment, and then it would be backfilled. Initially they had a timber revetment here, and which used to give a lot of problems, right? It used to, part of it just collapse. We have to come emergency work, put it in sandbags to prevent the water from eroding the embankment, the dam. So it's a project that was meant to be.
As the project winds down, landscaping, tiling, and the installation of decorative lights along with benches are to be done. InfoHub spoke with a few persons who shared their thoughts on the benefit of the project.
The project is going to enhance the end here, which is good. It becomes a spectacle of the road end, because over the years we were looking like a ghost town. And this is very good for the community, the travelers, and everybody is going to benefit from this.
Absolutely, I feel happy, man. I feel happy because we take a long time to get the place developed like this,
The business is picking up. People are coming around, they like the place. People don't start visiting the infrastructure work in front there. And I expect that you will get plenty of visitors coming, people coming from all over to see Supernaam, how it looks like.
As you can see, this project is taking shape quite nicely. Reporting from Supernaam with videographer Kareem Peters, Shaquille Bourne for InfoHub.
Y'all notice what the engineer said? They were always challenged over that Supernaam place there. They were always challenged because the revetment, which was wooden, imagine the PPP was in office for 23 years. Prior to that, the majority of their people in that region, but they took the vision And the love, I dare say, of the Granger government to recognize that, listen, this one revetment is always falling apart. It's always creating hardships to these people. According to one of the viewers, this place was like a ghost town. As government, we have a responsibility. Let's fix it. How much money did they expend? Did I hear $173 million? Is that what I heard? I can't remember. And that's not one of the regions that the coalition won. To say they were doing it for their people, as we like to say. Is that one of the regions that they want? But they did it because they recognized it would bring improvement. Right? To the lives of those vendors. To the lives of the users of the facility. Did you hear one of the person on the interview? He said people are already coming to this area to visit the waterfront. Things are improving. That is what governments do. I don't know if there is an Inform still, I don't know what they call it. NCN, Department of Public Information. You know, the PPP always tries to erase and change everything to suit them for God knows what. They can't go and read something and leave it as it is and work with it. It always has to have a PPP stamp. Anyways, but a lot of these things, just Google what you want to know and put DPI in the search, and you might very well see it coming up. Good? So they went and they spent $143 million, I think. Good? To develop the waterfront project. $143 million modern waterfront project at Supernaam, open to the public. It was opened on the 19th of February 2020. In the year when the coalition was going to an election, what, in March, I think? But the project started before. Following Bartica, Supernaam has recently become the second community to have a modern waterfront development project built under the coalition government. So Supernaam wasn't the first. Bartica had the same enhancement done for them. This was disclosed by Minister of Public Infrastructure, the Honorable David Patterson, in National Communications Network Program context. This is a pull quote from the story. Hear what Patterson had to say. To ensure effective oversight for activities in the Supernaam waterfront, Minister Patterson noted, listen to what Patterson said. Quote, we have established a management committee that comprises persons within the NDC, the RDC, the Ministries of Public Infrastructure, and communities. This was not a one-man crusade. It was not a one-ministry crusade. That's the correct approach to the government. It took into consideration every tier of government. NDC, the local authority, they were involved. RDC, the regional authority, they were involved. Central government was involved in the form of the Ministry of Public Infrastructure and the Ministry of Communities, or housing as we call it. So this wasn't a one-man masquerade. Let's continue. Paving works on the road leading to the project were recently executed. This project is positioned to be a significant asset to Region 2 and will benefit both operators, vendors, and commuters, among others. Good? we saying that with the limited resource that the coalition government had, they could achieve these things. But with hundreds of millions of dollars coming into the coffers of this country from ExxonMobil, the oil industry, the PPP government can do better? Is that what we're saying? Don't they have the capacity to even exhibit a willingness to do better? Every single project that the PPP talks about is marred in confusion and corruption and exclusion. They just crusade into communities and do as they like without considering and consulting the local authorities. Case in point, right in Buxtonan, the PPP controls the NDC. But yet the administrative officers of the NDC can hardly tell you what is happening in their local area. You see roads building left, right, center, you see this happening and so on, and you see movements, and when you inquire from the NDC, they can't even tell you who is executing the project. And you all call this good governance? And you call this fairness and respect for people's rights? No, it don't work so, it can't work so, it must not work like that. And so Bartik and Supernaam, they were not the only projects. Because I am sure there was a list of projects. Major upgrades of wharfs and stellings. This is April 29, 2018. This was Patterson talking about what they intend to do. In his 2018 budget speech, Finance Minister Winston Jordan had announced that $250 million was allocated to upgrade Bartik and Leg 1 stellings. Additionally, it was also revealed at the Public Infrastructure Year-End Review that studies for the rehabilitation of Parika, Supernaam, Wakanam stellings were going to be undertaken. A total of $534 million was allocated in 2017 budget, of which $240 million were to be used on vessels and $294.2 million for upgrading stellings. 2 water taxis costing $20 million were to be constructed. $130 million was to be used to extend the current narrow driveway of the Supernaam stelling to permit easier passage of long base trucks. And the entire driveway will be asphalted. Good? So these are just, I'm highlighting some of the things. $10 million for the rehabilitation of New Amsterdam and Rosignol stellings. Mazurini Dockyard was to be rehabilitated to a total cost of about $50 million. Right? These are all things which the coalition was doing to improve the lives and livelihood of the ordinary man and woman in this society. But people tell you a whole bundle of crap, despite all the nonsense that the current administration is doing. Right? That's good governance, young. I think I made my case in relation to that. I'll move over to Linden. Yesterday, caller raised the question. Yesterday, caller raised the question or introduced the discussion about Linden, what was happening at Linden, and the PPP's quest to want to control Linden and so on and so forth. PPP rushing into Linden as often as they do and trying to form partnerships in Linden and having candidates in Linden and so on. It's not because they have the best interests of Lindeners or residents of Region 10 in a whole at heart. It is because they recognize the economic value of Linden and the fact that they cannot continue to avoid the development of Linden. They cannot continue to prevent the development of Linden. And so, okay, inevitably we will have to develop Linden, or inevitably Linden will be developed by some government or other. And so we must ensure that our people will get the benefits of that development. And so let us start going into Linden. Let us start pushing people off lands along the Suez like Linden Highway. Let us start taking control of things in Linden. Let us do our best. Let us push to take control of the municipality. That is what I want you to recognize. And again, they're going to tell me, as they like say, Kenaki Amsterdam IQ low. Kenaki Amsterdam is a lie. He lies through his teeth. They like tell you that. I always bring the evidence. I always bring the evidence. December 19th, 2010, Kaichor News, Starbuck News reports Guyana pushing for Linden, Lethem Road, and Deepwater Port. What? Guyana pushing for Linden, Lethem Road, and Deepwater Ports. Why? Why? Linden provides a beautiful opportunity for Brazil, especially when it comes to export-import. Here's a story. Kaichor News reported in 2016, November 17, 2016, collaboration with Brazil on Linden, Lethem Road and Deep Harbor projects. Let me read that story to see what it tells you. Because as long as the Deep Harbor is developed in Linden, containers and so on will be traversing the Linden Lethem Road to come to the Deep Harbor port. The man's name, where the people sent that video complaining that the court wardens and so on turned up and were ejecting them out of their homes, evicting them. Right? Collaboration with Brazil on Linden, Lethem Road, Deepwater Harbor. Guyana banks heavily on projects changing economic landscape. The final results of the Guyana-Brazil and Transport Link, Land Transport Link, and Deepwater Harbor projects have been presented to government with the administration banking on the initiatives to boost trade and major economic developments. The project can prove economically beneficial to Guyana through stakeholders' participation, Minister of Public Infrastructure David Patterson said. The final results were yesterday presented at the second conference at the Marriott Hotel by maritime economist Hamburg Port Consulting, Dr. Andreas Non. President of the forum in addition, no and all of that, man. The first conference was in July 2013. Patterson, according to a statement from government, said that the stakeholders' participation is necessary since there are many challenges to address if the project is to be completed in a timely manner. Guyana can increase the competitiveness of its exports and lower maritime costs. Guyana can also benefit from stimulating activity along the road, leading to regional economic benefit in terms of employment and GDP. When we also take into account the need for tolling, this may also take another dimension of economic returns for Guyana. The road being referred to is the paving of the current Linden Road which links the coastline to Brazil. Patterson indicated that Brazil has not been a major import or export player, even though Guyana shares a border with that country. The Amazon River on the Atlantic coast is the main route for import and export to the Brazilian state of Roraima. However, this route is not only time-consuming but relatively expensive. Therefore, an alternative transportation route is necessary. That is where the projects come in. Guyana and Brazil have formed a working group with a number of meetings held over time. Already a bridge across the Takutu River links the two countries. The traffic potential for cargo is considered to be significant, which is the reason for this market survey. And if the existing port of Georgetown cannot support this potential, the development of a suitable water port in Guyana is therefore the way to go. While the corridor link in the Guyanese border will prove to be a major competitive alternative for routing cargo to and from Brazil, Patterson explained. Right? So, you can go and Google the story. I simply Googled Deepwater Harbor, I think, Guyana. Linden is ideal for the establishment of that kind of port. The Linden-Latham Road would be a direct link from that port to Brazil and from Brazil to that port. The economic benefits and spring-offs will be tremendous. The PPP knows that. The PPP has access to the studies and the blueprints. What do? They farm out high-valued property to their friends and cronies, friends, family, and favorites. Obviously, through insider trading. Insider trading because they have access to the information. They have access to know where the future developments will take place and what are the economic benefits that will follow. And so before they even announce to the public that X project or Y project is going to take place, they quietly siphon off the best of the lot for themselves, their friends and families. 1 or 2 cronies can get. They quietly push off the indigenous from those lands. When I say indigenous, I'm not talking about Amerindians. I'm talking about people who are the locals from those lands. That's what they're doing. And so by the time you hear the announcement of the projects in a public way, guess what? All the opportunities have already been gobbled up by the PPP for their friends, favorites, and families. Ordinary citizens, predominantly Afro-Guyanese right now in these regions I'm talking about, are forced aside. They have to wallow in poverty. And the haves get more. And the corrupt gets even more. And the PPP continues with its wickedness. That's what we're faced with in this society. That's what we are faced with in the society. You want more evidence? I will give you more. It's 11 minutes past 8 o'clock hour. Late last week, I think it was Friday, you will remember me rushing down to Enmore to do a live, right? Many of you were on the live feed. I think it was titled Land Standoff, or Standoff over Land at Enmore North. Miranda Brown, you got access to all the studies, you tell me. Right? You tell me, contradict what I am putting into the public. You contradict it. Anyhow, so I was down there to do that live. You would have heard Anil Nandal on the live talking with representatives of the North Haslington Co-op about that plot of land. You would have heard him say, beyond the shadow of a doubt, it has been established that the land is property of the co-op. Anybody who listened to that live, contradict me, tell me you did not hear that. If you listen to that live, and you did not hear Anil say, and whatever his name, that man from that old crook, from Lands and Survey, the man that survey and sell survey government land as part of the various estate, I think. What's his name? He from Coven John side. Right, you know him, he's commissioner of Lands and Survey, whatever his name is. He and Anil and the other officials who were present there, you heard them on tape saying that it has been established that the land is the property of the co-op. I also heard him say that not because the land is the property of the co-op, they could use it as a field. There are procedures which they must follow. Fair enough. I've been following that land development. I've reported to you that certain friends of the government attempted to get it through bribing the secretary. The offer was $11 million. They want it badly. But the co-op management decided that we are not going to sit idly by and allow those who have to covet what poor people can benefit from. And so they acted quickly. They did their developmental plan. They did the layout of the area. There were struggles along the way. They settled those struggles with the Ministry of Labor, Department of Co-ops, at least so they thought. They got their go-ahead to do as they wish. So they allotted those lands to members. Every plot of land there, as far as I know, has been allocated to a member who has already paid in excess of 50%. And in 90% of the cases, 100% of the value. The co-op is now in the process of developing infrastructure so that people can move in to occupy the lands. And so you would have noticed from that video, heavy machinery working there. What they were doing is, or what they are doing, is develop the road network. But as it is, poor people, black people, anybody is suspected to be a supporter of the opposition, anybody is suspected to be not supportive of you, should not have access to anything in this country. And so encouraged by those at Freedom House, residents of Enmore North, supporters of the PPP, consistently encroached on the lands, consistently trespassed on the lands, consistently prevented workers from continuing with the development of the land smoothly. Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, neighbor, morning. Them not like me conniving. Morning, morning. It is the 17th day of May in the year 2023. Yes, it's Wednesday. It's the day when Dr. Hines is usually with us, and I'm happy to report that he has reported this week, so he's here. And so Dr. Hines and we all will talk about a lot of things that's happening in this country right now, as per normal. How was your yesterday? I trust you had a good day yesterday. I saw a lot of you misbehaving at Sir Mari's funeral. You must get some behavior respect to that. But you can't go all over and misbehave. Good? Y'all don't do it. Good. But as I said, proper send off for Sir Mari's yesterday. Good? So I know a lot of you out there, a lot of you went out there because you are fast. Some of you went out there because you wanted to, you know, give your sympathy, show sympathy with the family and friends and relatives and so on. And some of you went out there because you have one postmortem, the dead all over again. You think I need easy, you know? I was telling a friend yesterday, some of them were there looking for another stuff that the police didn't report on. But this guy now. And it's good when people are inquisitive in a society, you know, because, you know, that inquisitiveness would save somebody's life eventually. Y'all trust me. Good? I'm happy to report to you, I know most of you must have seen it, that the misbehavior in public office charge against our finance minister, Winston Jordan, was dismissed yesterday in court. And Anil is, as the old people say, crime blue murder. Anil is crime blue murder. Analyzing the court's decision and criticizing it. You know, it's all good and well. I like the fact that we can, you know, revisit and criticize the court's decision and so on. But like we say, you know, only when the boots is on the other foot, people just feel it squeeze. When this thieving law book case was thrown out by the DPP, not pressed by the DPP, he didn't ball in. When 19 fraud charges were set aside, he didn't beg in. But now, because the case against Winston Jordan was dismissed, he ball in blue murder. That is Guyana for you. Right? Let me inform you that I'm continuing to follow up this land issue at Enmore. And also at Melanie. I did mention that the Vijalsha Co-op lands at Melanie, just around the turn there. Many of us call it Chaspay turn, Melanie turn. That first turn. If you see machinery working on that land there, it's now leveled. It's that land is the property of Vijalsha Co-op. They went to court for it against this very PPP government and all of that. And the courts ruled in their favor. But you know, the PPP never gives up. And so I understand allegedly recently, it is alleged that Anil Nandlal instructed Greaves and the rest of Ministry of Housing, CHMPA, Central Housing and Planning Authority, to put machinery on the land and develop it because the co-op doesn't have the money to develop it. That's none of Anil's business. My further understanding is that what they're going to be putting there is a private developer to build a multi-complex. People must wake up. People must wake up. Why only things that are seemingly going to benefit African Guyanese are being taken away in this manner? And I say in this manner, I'm saying through bullyism by the those who are masquerading in the seat of government, masquerading as Attorney General, because no Attorney General really behaves like that. The Attorney General's job is for the interests of the country, not individual groups. And people are sitting back and taking it quietly. Quietly, nobody is lifting a finger to do anything about it. And more, the PPP supporters went onto the land, co-op land, and practically forced the machinery operator to stop working, whether willingly or not. They damaged one of the hydraulic hoses, and so the man had to stop, regardless of even if he wanted to continue to work. But at Melanie, you know, Melanie, named after Fox Burnham daughter. Machinery is working and nobody is stopping them working on co-op land. Y'all there for nothing. Morning, you tune to the Guyanese Morning Time. These things we'll have to talk about later. Dr. Hines, are you there? Dr. Hines?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to the program. How you do?
Thank you much.
It's been a while. You've been on vacation long. You overstay your leave.
No, freedom fighters never go on vacation.
Okay, I guess you were then you were in the hills planning the next revolution.
No, the revolution. No. The revolution in the 2023 is not planned. It's worked for.
Oh, you know, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Again.
Welcome to the program. You know, there's so many things, so many things that we have to talk about. But I will start with good news coming out of the courts yesterday. The former Minister of Finance, Vincent Jordan. You know, Mr. Jordan used to be here with us analyzing the government's failure, managing the economy and so on. And so he was getting charges upon charges upon charges. Many believe to silence him. And yesterday in court, one of those charges was dismissed. Misbehaving in public office. That charge, I think, or I'm sure, was related to the Kingston waterfront asset that the government transferred to BK based on a previous agreement that was made with the PPP government and BK. Your thoughts on the dismissal of the charges and significance?
Well, it represents a giant step on the part of the court not to be used as political fodder in the PPP's quest for domination of the country. It is very clear that since 2020, that the PPP has been on a campaign to use the institutions of the state and the society to aid and abet its quest for political dominance. And those charges that have been brought against Minister Jordan and other functionaries of the former government were part of the PPP's political quest for dominance and its bid to witch hunt against its political enemies, some would say its political opponents. And in ruling that Minister Jordan was not a public officer, which is quite obvious. He's a political appointee, he's not a public officer. The case that was brought against him was misconduct in public office by a public officer. And a minister of government is not a public officer in the sense that he's not a public servant. He or she is not a public servant. That should have been obvious to Suku, the Attorney General, and the PPP, and I'm sure it's obvious to them. But when people become drunk with power, they regard the obvious. They feel the court is so foolish that something as basic as that the court would look past it, and the court would go ahead and wrongfully convict Mr. Jordan because the court is in the pocket of the PPP. Well, the court has shown that it is not in the pocket of the PPP by throwing out the case, because to any little university student, first-year law student, would know that a minister of government is not a public officer. And so the case was bad in law. For the Attorney General to say that he's going to appeal the case is further disrespect and insulting of the intelligence of the court. And so you describe it as a victory, and I think it's a victory. It's a victory for the court, because as I have theorized since 2020, that when you have regime change, that is when one government is thrown out of office, not by the democratic process, but by the political process, and you install a new government via the political process, you're opening the door for all kinds of unconstitutional acts on the part of the government, and for a disrespect for the rule of law, and also for a disrespect for the norms of normal governance. And we have seen the PPP on the rampage in the last 3 years. And I heard you with it this morning. We are blaming people. Why are people not doing this? And why are people not doing that? And we can only do that because people are normal. And we expect that in normal circumstances, people will act normally. I don't think there is an appreciation, even by you, of what we are going through in Guyana. It is not normal. And we are looking for normal solutions to an abnormal situation. And that is why I have to be like a stock record. We have never had it. Regime change in Guyana in many of your lifetime. The last time we had regime change was 1964. And so there's not an appreciation for what regime change does for society. And so we're looking for normal answers. But, normal answers from the court, normal answers from people, normal answers to this, boots on the ground, normal answers. There are no normal answers in an abnormal political situation. Regime change realigns the entire society, and the society has to recover from regime change. And for a society to recover from regime change, it means the institutions of the society have to regain their integrity and their equilibrium, and then we will see normal politics. And the court, in the ruling by Justice Kisoon, this ruling by the magistrate, the court has begun the process of recovering from the shock of regime change. And so that victory yesterday, that ruling yesterday, was a victory for the court. Because you see, the court's conservative jurisprudence, the conservative jurisprudence, aided and abetted regime change. And in order to recover from regime change, the court has to move beyond the conservatism. The court, in a sense, has to smell the political agenda and push back against it. That is what Justice Kisoon did in that case regarding the EPA. And this is what Magistrate Daly did yesterday. It is more than just a ruling. It's a ruling that rebukes the political directorate. Note the Vice President Jack Dio and the Attorney General. They are not just merely opposing and disagreeing with the ruling of the court. As Jack Dio said, the court is moving into murky waters. Who determines what is murky waters? The king, the monarch. That is what we have moved into. We have, over the last 3 years, we have had a political monarchy. As my friend Lincoln Lewis likes to say, we're not dealing with people who are governing, we're dealing with rulers. That's what a monarchy does. It rules. And there is the king wagging his finger at the court. You're moving into murky waters. I have been alert in Guyana for 3 years, and many of you all have not been listening. Guyana is not a normal polity. And do not look for normal solutions to problems. If you do that, then you're always going to be pointing fingers at your people. Your people not doing this. Your people not doing this. Why are your people not doing that? And in a sense, beating down your people and making them look as though they are not normal. And that's what the monarchy wants to say. The monarchy says to people, you're commoners. That is why in England they call it the House of Commons and the House of the Lords. And we are contributing to our people being called commoners by saying to them, why are you all not doing this? Why are you all not doing that? And people ought to be looking at us as they have been doing. To say you all are not doing your work in recognizing why we are not acting normal. And so the ruling yesterday signifies that the court is beginning to crawl out of abnormality and becoming normal again.
I want to add to that ruling, Dr. Hines. The ruling by the Chief Justice over the last weekend there, or last week, with a challenge to the elections of the Guyana Press Association. We've seen a lot of moves, a lot of maneuverings in the approach to those elections. The lone contestant or challenger to the incumbent GPA president, Dale Marks, by now a known PPP operative. The move to the courts by Guyanese critic to try to get those elections stopped. One would believe that government ain't got no business in an NGO and how they conduct their business. But it is evident that this government has an interest there. Many believe that the offer to get a building for the GPA, if Neil Marks were to be made president, is a direct government offer, or an offer that would have been funded by friends of the government. And what's your whole take with this government's desire, let me call it that, to take over the GPA or to install?
Well, first of all, sorry.
Go ahead. That's it.
Well, you asked the question there indirectly. Why is the government taking such an active interest in the election of that involves just 100 and not people, 110 people, 115 people? Doesn't the government have better things to do, one may ask? Why does the election in an organization that is now what, 45, 55, 78 years old, and it's a 78-year history of the Guyana Press Association. We have never had such a frenzy around an election. And so the naked eye must ask why. This is what political analysts must do. And Guyana has become such a dead place that our political analysts don't ask questions. Why, in 78 years, for the first time, there is such a frenzy about an election in an organization that has been around 78 years old? The rest of the society never know when there are elections in the Press Association because those elections have been low-key. 78 years. Why in 2023 there is such a frenzy for the first time in 28 years? Any serious analyst would first ask that question. Second, why is the government taking an active interest in that election? Third, why is the opposition, including you and me, taking such an active interest? When you ask that question, then you have to ask what is different about 2023? And what is different about 2023? I go back, is that 2020 happened. 2020 has changed Guyana. The Guyana political landscape forever. Things that we didn't take interest in, we are taking interest in now. The Guyana Press Association, like the court, like the public schools, like all the institutions in the society, has now become embroiled in the life and death struggle for absolute control of Guyana. The 2020 election was not about who will govern Guyana for the next 5 years. It was not about that. That is what normal elections are about. Abnormal elections is about which forces will control Guyana for the next at least 50 years. Oil is likely to last in Guyana for the next 50 years. That is what 2020 was about. What happened in 2020 is that media owners thought that 2020 was a normal election. And many of them stood on the side of democracy. And they thought that one party was undemocratically trying to prevent another party from democratically coming to power. So here we are, Democrats fighting to preserve democracy. And they got themselves there. The media owners took the media. They made them supporters of regime change unwittingly. Unwittingly. Because I don't believe the journalists knew it was regime change happening. Maybe some of the media owners were part of the planning of the regime change. Maybe. We're not sure. So, once the government came to power, in its mind, it had the media in its pocket. The media became puppets. Well, 3 years later, some of the media, the owners of the media houses, have realized that they were conned and that they are puppets. And they've begun to change course, but they're too ashamed to apologize to the rest of us for what they did in 2020. And so the media, like the courts, have decided we are going to pull ourselves out of the pocket of the installed regime. And we are going to begin to do that. We are going to turn our elections into a moment of resistance, active resistance against an installed regime. That is what the GPA elections were about. And 75 boots on the ground, boots on the ground. Those journalists have redefined boots on the ground, because some of us joke around and we talk about boots on the ground. We talk about people going on the street with placards. Those journalists didn't go on the street with placards. It was a defining moment on Sunday in the 78-year history of the media. Where a government flushed with power, you're talking about building, it's the dangling. You know, they go in the black community and raid the black community and give them $10,000. But they were open to raid journalists with dangling a building before them. But the journalists had the sense to recognize the moment. And the government wanted to get hold of the voters list. And the journalists told them, go to hell. And so they went to the court to compel the court to tell the journalists must turn over the voters list, and the court said, that's not our business. And 75 journalists told them where to go. There were 25 slave catchers who voted for Neil Marks. Because Neil Marks went there not to win an election. He went there to catch slaves, to turn them over. And I bet you, those 25 voters for him, if not all, close to all of them work at the state media. I will put, well, I was about to say to put my bottom dollar, but I'm not a rich man. But I'm sure that all of those 25, if not most of them, belong to the state media, because they would have felt compelled to vote for Neil Mark because they work at the state media. But it was the workers of the independent media who lift up their proverbial voices and said no. It was a victory for the freedom of media workers to determine their own destiny. And in doing that, they have removed one more cog from the wheel of the installed regime. As they've threatened, those 25, they're going to take them and form another press association. You all have to understand, my people, what is happening in your country. This is not play. Sometimes we play because we think they're dealing with normal politics. We call on the government to do this. An installed regime does nothing your opposition asks it to do. Waste your breath. We call on the government. And we have politicians representing us running around with that stupid language. We call on the government to do this. The government has no time with you. And those journalists, they didn't call on the government to do nothing. They woke up and they said, this is the moment presented to us. We shall not allow this to pass. Read carefully in today's papers, the letters. One by our friend Kip Nascimento. He didn't wait. Condemned the Press Association, just as he came out and condemned Ogunse and Hines and Burke and the rest of us. That is his job. He moved from us, and now he's gone to another Ogunse. The Press Association, Svetlana Abrams and Ragbir and so on. They're now the most dangerous people. But Sister Svetlana replied, you all go in the papers, go on the Chronicle and read Svetlana's reply. And there she nails the lie. Their argument was that the people were padding the list with new voters. Neil Mark's no good about that because he friends them, came to power in 23 with a padded list by 200,000. And Sister Svetlana in today's papers was able to present the evidence that she went to the state media offices and that all the people who paid their dues, thus registering, were all members of the GPA in the past. And so there is no padded list. What they want the voters list for, the GPA voters list, they wanted to see the names of the people and to harass them. And the GPA was right not to turn the list over to an agent of the regime. And that sister was able to prove. You all go in the Starbuck News on the Chronicle and read her letter. And I want the government to do as Svetlana has done and to prove that the list at GCOM, I want GCOM to do that, is not padded. Because she was able to show it's not a padded list. And they're asking why she didn't turn the voters list over. It's not your damn business. The court has said it is not. It's a private organization. Amen to those 75 people. Those are real boots on the ground. No fake boots on the ground. Real boots on the ground. We are marching on to Zion. One by one. Let not your hearts be troubled, my people. Come off of that boots on the ground because you all want revolution tomorrow. If you all know the magnitude of what happened in 2020, you all will do like those journalists did at the GPA and work quietly for your liberation. All praises to those mostly women. Nazima Ragbir is a shining star because she put her life on the line. She could have said, I'm not running again. And to leave the door open for the marauders. But she put her life on the line. She is a shining star.
Thank you, Dr. Hines. You know, it was actually 70 votes in Nazima, 25 for Neil. And rumor has it that the least Neil was expecting to get, there was one spoiled ballot. The rumors that Neil was expecting to get 26 because 26 was sent from the state media. Right? So
Well, he got 25 plus a spoil vote.
yes.
That is what I'm saying. I am certain I'm not dealing with rumors.
Yes.
I'm dealing with analysis.
Right? Like you rightly
My
said.
analysis says to me that they're from the thing. I'm not dealing with rumors. Rumors are for rumor mongers. And I'm not one.
Very well.
And
You know,
six things that, my brother, not rumors.
the other thing I want to talk about is we're talking about the courts taking decisions that will that are showing basically, well, they're trying, my terminology, they're working to reclaim their space and their independence and so on. So we're seeing all of these criticisms. But one of the most fretting, if I can use that word, act of those who are critical of the court's decision making recently is the EPA. I dare say with the instructions of Jagdio and the PPP going to court to appeal that ruling of Justice Sandil Kisoon. Is Sandil his name, I think? Yes. On the insurance issue, the liability issue for oil spill. The agreement signed by Exxon, according to my understanding, is that the parent company will take unlimited liability. And that was done while the coalition was in office. Vincent Adams, I think, Dr. Vincent Adams was the person in charge of EPA at that time. But once the PPP came to office, Mr. Adams was kicked to the curb, and I understand the full liability clause was disregarded. And so that ended up before the courts. The courts ruled that Exxon must honor it, and a timeline was set and so on. Hence the Jagdio statement about the courts getting into murky waters. The subsequent appeal by EPA. How are you reading this particular action by the state representatives of the state and state institutions against the people of Guyana, I dare say?
Well, it's very simple. The state is choosing between the interests of the people of Guyana and the interests of those who installed it. And only a fool will not pay back people who installed it. Because if you don't pay back those who are installing you, they will reinstall you tomorrow. The PPP is acting predictably. There's no, look, people are asking these questions like the one you asked just now, as though it's some mystery. It is not a mystery. In normal politics, a government does not appeal against itself. But in abnormal politics, a government appeals against itself to preserve the arrangement it has made with external forces. That's all. It's not a mystery.
Very well, thank you. It's now 7 minutes to the 8 o'clock hour. You tune to the Guyanese Morning Time. We're talking with Dr. Hines on recent developments.
A fired up Dr. Hines.
Well, we're talking to a fired up Dr. Hines. As far as I know, quite frankly, Dr. Hines is always fired up. So I don't think
Extra fire this morning.
Fired up Dr. Hines. Right? But, you know, we're talking with a fired up Dr. Hines this morning on the several issues in the society. You know, there's so many things that are happening that one cannot easily turn a blind eye to. Especially issues that affect the working class, the poorer class. We see over the last week or so, dozens of vendors being cleared from, I think the place is called Red Road, the approach to Amazonia Mall, which is allegedly owned by Ali and fronted by Sarwan. Dozens of people being removed from that area there. the state is claiming, well, you know, basically, y'all got a place looking like a shanty town, etc. We need to clear the roadways. We need to improve the aesthetic. But that removal, from what I've seen, the people who suffer from that removal are majority African Guyanese, women in particular. Many of them say they're single parent. Similar to the claims at Newmarket Street. Similar to claims along the East Coast. Majority people are being affected by these actions. African Guyanese single parent women. And the government seem not to be providing a solution for them, but just pushing them off of the daily hustle, let me call it that. Is it political, is it economic, or aesthetic, as they say?
But let me say, I don't know whether Ali owns the mall and whether Sharon is fronting for him. I don't know. That's why I just want to put that disclaimer in my answer. I don't know. So I am not, I can't respond to that. However, there you go again. The government is not presenting a solution. In normal circumstances, the government will present a solution. In abnormal circumstances, the government doesn't believe it has to present a solution. Pure and simple. My answer to that is over. Listen, since Takuma Ogunsi mounted that platform in front of where I was born in Buxton and made that speech, he has unshackled Guyana. And look what has happened since then. The court has begun to act affirmatively. The Guyana Press Association, journalists are acting affirmatively. A man just walked from quarantine to Essequibo. Give thanks to Takuma Ogunse and the Working People's Alliance. I say no more.
Thank you very much. Finally, before I open up the lines, it's 4 minutes to the 8 o'clock hour. Of course, before I open up the lines, Dr. Hines will have the right to introduce any other thing he wants to talk about. But you and I have been following for business, let's say, across this country. We heard Polori Joseph Harmon say in Parliament, listen, a lot of lands, millions of acres perhaps, are in the ownership of co-ops around this country. They are not being developed, and we are going to take it away from them. The government will take it away from them. Can be taken as an idle threat, because we have seen across the country a lot of moves are being made to take away land from people, in co-ops especially. Again, predominantly African Guyanese in these co-ops are suffering loss of lands and so on. Most recent is the Vijalsha co-op with Melanie. They had a swat of land just north of the main road there that the Ministry of Housing over the last week moved in and started to clear. There's a North Haslington co-op which had gotten all clearance from the very Joe Harmon to proceed with their development of lands that they owned.
Not Joe Harmon, why?
Sorry, not Joe. Polori Joe, man. You know, Hamilton. Joe Hamilton. Right? Which they had gotten clearance from Joe Hamilton to proceed with their development. Recently, there were several incursions onto the land by residents of Enmore North. And eventually, Anil turned up there last weekend, had a public interaction with them. I have him on tape as saying, yes, it has been certified that the land belongs to the co-op, and so it is their right to develop it. There are certain steps which they should have been taking or which they will need to take to continue the development. So basically left with that understanding, giving the people the understanding that it's the co-op land and the co-op will get to develop it. But lo and behold, Monday, the ministry moved in and placed no trespassing signs on the land, saying, well, this land is property of the government of Ghana for future development. I've seen the records, I've seen the documents which state by way of transport and everything that the land is the co-op land, like Anil admitted, and Moniz, who is the Commissioner of Lands and Survey, admitted right there and then. I recently learned that once Anil left that meeting, his position changed. Instructions were given to Moniz and the CHPA to go and confiscate the land. Not because it is not the co-op land, but because the supporters of the PPP are complaining, and he has to take action. Your thoughts?
Look, it is good to document these things, and I'm sure you all are documenting them. All right? That's the first thing. Because those documentations are going to be important when the time comes to reclaim those lands. That's the first thing. The second thing I want to say is that land is now premium in Guyana and will be premium for a long time. And that this is a government that is in the business of land grabbing in order to turn that capital over to their supporters. That's the second thing. The third thing I wouldn't say, because this morning I'm not on that height, but I want to say power is important. When you have power, you don't wield it just in a conventional way. When you are in an unconventional situation, when you have power, there are some factors you have to take into consideration. And one of the factors that one day you will be out of power. I'm done.
Thank you. So it is now a minute past 8 o'clock. Hour the lines are opened up. Dr. Hines, anything you want to talk to us?
No. It's time for the callers to have their say.
The lines are opened up, 6225933. You're tuned to the Guyanese Morning Time. Call and let's talk the thing. Let's talk about all the judgments of the court recently and how the PPP is crying blue murder. The
PPP is not crying blue murder, boy. The PPP is not crying blue murder. The PPP is faking as if it's crying blue murder.
Well, thank you for that.
The PPP know what's happening. The PPP know what's happening. They're not crying blue murder. They know what's happening. They're crying blue murder to make us think that they're engaging us normally. They're not crying blue murder. They're faking it.
Thank you. First call for the morning. Call A Live, good morning.
Good morning to you and all my black brothers and sisters.
Call A, you're low. You are low. Your volume is low.
Okay, can you hear me now?
A little better, but you need to turn on what's in your background also.
Yes, good morning to you and all my black brothers and Mr. David. Let me start by saying, Mr. David, what you said last night is good. It's true. The PPP know that the army and the police always vote for PNC and slash coalition. That's why they told them supporters them for stamp up at the ballot and don't stamp at the bottom to make it spell vote. That's why they put now an Indian man there to run the army and Flash Garden saying they said, look out for this damage. This man that running the army, he could come out and tell the army men, look, I will give you guys $50,000 because it is wrong what the government doing. You are supposed to get more money. My black brother and sister don't fall for that nonsense. And he would go to the top and give the top army men them 300,000, 200,000. for the next big election, they start setting foundation to go back in office. We eyes have to open and stop that. We have to fight fire with fire, not fire with water. What you mentioned again just now, the government of Guyana know what they're doing is wrong, but they're protecting the power, they're protecting the office to stay in office. My grandmother teach me the age of 9, Flash Garden, that Indian people love power, money, land, and they love to kill black people. They're protecting the oil company that the American government would not sanction them and even pay no mind of the problem in Guyana. That means every cow does cry for their own cow. Jack Dio is crying for the oil company, not for the citizens them in Guyana. David Granger, we have a chance for cry for his calf. He did not. He asked nonsense what you bring for the table. And we're saying this again. He demonstrates the story of the dog and the bone. It is time for Guyanese fight back. Yes, our brother said a right thing and thing change. Find the gun somewhere else. It is still valuing them still studying. When black people are going to rise up. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your call.
Thank you for your call.
I see the government claims that they've given out hundreds of millions of dollars in contract in Pleasance. Let me point to y'all something. The drainage contracts issued in Pleasance to the value of $22 million. When you assess the number of contractors that $22 million was given to per lot, it's less than $2 million per contract. They're those who will sing glorious songs to the PPP for a $1.8 million contract in Pleasance. But in a neighboring community, one contractor gets $180 million to execute works. And he ain't singing the praises. He might be grateful, but he ain't singing the praises. Caller, you're live. Good morning.
Morning, Kadaki. Morning, Dr. Hines, and morning, Guyana. Dr. Hines, one question I have. In your opinion, do you think African Guyanese know the dire straits we as a people are in Guyana? I think that's one of my simplest questions that I have for you. Do the African Guyanese know what's in store for them, and do they know what dire straits we're in? And that's my question.
Thank you, caller. Dr. Hines?
Yes, they do know. Because they're human beings. Human beings know, feel, smell. God made us like that. They know. Do they feel confident enough to push back against it in the way that they should push back against it? I don't think so. But they know. Including those who have decided to cooperate. They're cooperating because they know. A lot of them are acting in fear. But they know because they're human beings, they're God's children.
Thank you. The lines remain open. 6225933 is the number to call. Remember, you tune to the Guyanese Morning Time. Also, remember that the Spice Girls, yes, the Spice Girls, Spice Mango Girls from Buxton, they're presenting their 23rd annual carnival. Juve is on the 19th of May, and the carnival itself is on the 21st of May. That will involve a tramp around the community with popular sound system and DJs. Right, the Spice Mango Girls 23rd annual carnival in Buxton, Juve on the 19th, carnival on the 21st. Call it live, good morning.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, Dr. Hines. Good morning, Brother Kadaki. Good morning to all the viewers and listeners. I would like to make an hypothetical comment and back it up by relating it to something that happened in the past. I think that hypothetically, I'm looking at next election. I think that this installed regime would be replaced the same way. Would be replaced by the coalition the same way the coalition was removed. That's the first thing. And with that, I think I know that the LPA will be in that coalition, and I think that the LPA should be going to that coalition with making deals, putting forward demands. And I think one of those demands one of the first demands that should be made is Clive Thomas's Buxton proposal. The reason for I think that these should be made and this particular should be proposed is that looking back to coming up to the 2020 election, when just before the election when all this thing was happening, I'm sure that I don't think these deals were being made, demands were being made and all these kind of things in regards to amongst the coalition members, because I'm sure that this conversation wasn't being had at the time where Dr. Hines mentioned this morning about the importance of the 2020 elections and the implications of all these things. I don't think these conversations were being had, especially with the coalition members, because I think Dr. Hines would have been speaking to the Granger government strongly about these kind of things. I know they had a fallout and all these kind of things, but I'm sure that the LPA was still involved then in some way or the other. And these conversations should have been, you should be making these conversations to the Granger government and talking about how important this election is. So with that, I don't think that these conversations was had, and they should once the government changes, and the demands, one of the demands should be, like I mentioned, the Clive Thomas Buxton proposal. That's what I see. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Dr. Hines, a response?
I accept the second the second proposal by the caller. Yes, these conversations were not being had in a robust way at all. The WPA was not strong enough in pushing those demands. So he's correct, and certainly at another election, we will not make that mistake. As to the first question, it's a difficult question. I don't know what the next election would look like. I'm trying to work out in my head what the next election would look like. But I'm telling you, it's going to be a hell of an election. I will have to go back and study where there have been regime changes and what happened with the election after that. I can tell you in Jamaica, there was regime change in 1980, and the next election in 1983, the PNP, Michael Manley's PNP boycotted the election. So the election was a damn squib. And the next election in 1989, Michael Manley came back to power. Like I said, Jamaica is the only country close in the English-speaking Caribbean that I can look at and to see what happened. And so at this point, I'm thinking about it, caller, what the next election would look like. Would it be like Jamaica, where the so-called opposition boycotted? Because the question was the voters list. The question was the voters list in Jamaica. Because the PNP argued they could not go to an election. What happened is that Siaga called a snap election. And we hear people talking about a snap election by the Ali Jagdeo government here. Siaga called a snap election in 83 with a padded voters list. And the PNP boycotted. And the next election, the PNP came back to power. Will that happen in Guyana? Will that happen in Guyana? We shall see. I am trying to figure out what our next election would look like. I don't know the answer, but I just give you the Jamaica scenario. That's all I have at the moment.
Call all the line, please. You know, Dr. Hines, the mention of the boycott of the next elections following the regime change in Jamaica is interesting. Does it appear as though we have an appetite for boycotting elections?
Brother Kedaki, oh Jesus Christ, we don't know what we have the appetite for because we are not in a normal belly. We don't know. If anybody had asked you whether the journalists had an appetite to kick Neil Marks in his balls, you would have said no.
Let's guys be careful before they say that's a vulgar analysis. Kicking Neil Marks in his balls.
I'm not a vulgar man, but I deliberately use that analogy.
Many might accuse you of being sexist. Call your line, good morning. What a line. I gotta get a little volume there. Go ahead, caller.
Morning.
Good morning.
Caller, your life.
Morning, my brother. Morning, neighbor. Morning.
Morning, caller.
Dr. Hines.
Good morning,
Hines,
sir.
You something else, boy. You something else, big brother. Last night was beat and teach. Beat and teach was last night. Look, let me tell you, this got a sharing all the time. That who won't get for listen, was beat and teach last night. And as Brother Kadaki said, as he tell Brother Kadaki on fire, there was real fire last night. Real fire. The positive reasoning. And so, look, you're talking about the 2025 election. Look, the 5-man team, the 5-man political party, them going bring about the power, and them going bring about the change. And I hope that the people, especially in Linden, they got a lot of young, honest, a lot of young, innocent, young male and female, that the elders, with the lazy-minded black men, the economically lazy-minded black men in Linden, we're just looking for bread and looking for a raise under the PPP, using them children, them innocent children. I want them to know that they're rising them up to be robbers and thieves and scamps as politicians rising up. I ain't throwing no bad cast on them, but this is what the parents leading them into, because imagine the goddamn children, being as party candidates and all kind of for the PPP and going around. Imagine them innocent children going around and with money and paying them at the young people for giving them the 10,000. Them is they using them innocent children for go around and pay out money and them thing. Look at get a girl at a young woman. I think she's the head for NCN in Linden. I was made to understand that Parajack, you approach that girl and tell she for join we. She want to eat the food and she deny it those in the campaign time. They get installed in government there. It go back to the girl. And the intimidation wasn't easy. The girl there right now on the ballot for local government election. Against your will, because she see the vengeance he come with. She know she got to put food on the table for your family. She know she got your needs and them things. Not everybody going tough, And I want them men in Linden, them economically lazy-minded men. them is what contributing to the women them who might got to go and do things in out of the way, forget by, because them are getting no representation for the men them. I said to them, they're lazy, economically lazy, and doing nothing. So what they do, they want a fast bread. They want a fast bread, a lot of guns, a lot of them get on with the thing them got gun license and all them kind of thing. When since the PPP go in power, since the PPP go back in power, yeah, there's what going on. But that times you continue the good works. It was real last night. It was real. Continue the good works, and Brother Kadaki, continue. The 5-man team is going to bring the change. Next election got a 5-man team is going to bring the change. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carla.
Blessed.
Okay.
Thanks very much for that. Thanks very much for that analysis. It's compelling. It triggered in my mind something that it was there, but I couldn't think it. The relationship between the men who want it easy, hence pushing the women, because you see the women they're tackling when they're going, when the slave catchers going to raid, they're going after we women. And the men rather sell the women for gun license. It's frightening. But we can deal with it.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm trying to shed some light on the lands of North Melanie. The information that I have is that those lands were first controlled by the late Felicia Beard, sister of Cicely Beard. One of the mistakes that she made was to name those that plot there the Green Acres. And she received opposition from the then president, Desmond. In 1992, when the PDP got into power, they flooded those lands. We didn't see or hear anything from it. We saw Mr. Norton there. As I speak, I still have a receipt for the purchase of a plot of land there to 16,000 Guyana dollars in 1990. I also think Mr. Green and Mr. Henry Jeffrey could shed some light on those issues that went on at those lands and at that housing scheme. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for calling. Caller, you there? All right, good. So that caller was giving us
yeah, make sure Kidaki, make sure you tell the caller to contact you off air, because that's information that we need to follow up with.
Caller, if you're listening, which I think you are listening, remember to make that contact so we can talk about this. Right? This is a matter I will be following up. We have always been following it, quite frankly. And sometime in the week, I think we are likely to do a more in-depth program on what's happening at Melanie there. So the input of this this column would be very, very important.
Very, very important, because if caller say he got your receipt.
Yes.
And I'm going to touch base with Jeffrey, and I'll touch base with Jeffrey and Hammy and try to figure out from them what they remember.
Very well. So we'll do a more in-depth analysis of what's happening over at Melanie sometime at a later time. Let's play some voice notes. Come. Behave yourself if you want to play. Now I'm to you.
Good morning, Mr. Amsterdam. Good morning, Mr. Hines. Yes, Mr. Hines, keep the pressure on. Keep the pressure up. Keep the pressure up. Enlighten the Guyanese people what is going on in Guyana. And the citizens of Guyana have a right to live a better life. Family have a right to provide for the children. The PPP have to go. They must go. Guyanese, come together. You can do it. Come together and vote the PPP out. That the country can run the way in a democratic way. Keep the pressure on, Mr. Hines. Guyanese, you deserve a better life. You deserve a better life. That is my take for today.
Thank you. I like the mind games that some people come on this program to play. Dr. Hines, anything you wanted to say there?
No, just to say thanks to the caller.
Yes, I'm saying I like the mind games some people come on this program to play every morning. I thoroughly enjoy them. They said WPA gonna make the opposition lose the next election, man. You know.
Thanks for that comment.
Right.
If a 5-man party can make the opposition lose an election, that 5-man party bad like a sword.
It is why the PPP is so desperate every morning to try to get us out of the air. It certainly is. It's 24 minutes past the 9 o'clock hour. Let me remind you that Yon's Pro Fashion has a sale. Yeah, Yon's Pro Fashion at Russell Square there at Starbuck Market opposite the old GNCB Bank. What originally used to be referred to as the Mocha Bus Park on that tarmac there. It's the second building on your left-hand side going in. Yon's Pro Fashion has a sale there, and you can go down there and get all kinds of things, you know, like potion dye and African prints and t-shirts and t-shirt printing and long and short tights and all those kind of stuff. You can go down to Yon's Pro Fashion there. You can call Janet and get more details. But certainly my encouragement is, you know, you need to make use of all of those deals that are available, because you got to stretch the dollar. Things are getting worse. Right? Things are getting worse. I saw, well, you know, 5-volt tires. Okay, real quick. Don't worry yourself. I saw promises of a better package to teachers. How long teachers have been hearing of this promise of better package? But apart from that, let me don't even address the better package. I was talking about those contracts given out in Plaisance. This is the time that Ali went to Plaisance last week, and I don't know if you saw the video, Dr. Hines. In my mind, assaulted a villager by talking and pushing him in the chest and so on, and thing. But most importantly, he made a lot of promises to Plaisance residents. Is it local government campaigning with our money?
No, those people are not local government campaign. The people are slave raiding. What local government campaign? The people are raiding slaves. What is Ali doing in Plaisance if not going to raid? That's what they're doing. The people are ready win their local government election in the areas in which they're contesting. And they're trying to get all of Georgetown, Bartica, New Amsterdam, and Linden. And so they're going into these communities to do raiding. The man is a slave.
Slave catchers and slave raiders.
That's what they're doing. You see, we cannot attach normality to abnormal people. The man don't intend, you think the man believe Plaisance people gonna vote for him? He get time with that? Going there to raid slaves, man.
At 28 minutes past the 8 o'clock, we were chatting with Dr. Hines, and we were talking about, you know, what's happening in the society. There are several rulings that should be coming up in this week, I think, or next week, in relation to GCOMs and the local government elections that I've mentioned them. New developments, let me report to you that over at one of the GCOM local offices in Georgetown there are almost 40 ID cards missing.
Pim.
Almost 40 ID cards missing, and the
Pim.
ID cards are from cycles 6 and 8, I think. If anybody who has been working at GCOM can tell me when was cycle 6 and 8 for registration, we can pinpoint the years of those ID cards. But I understand they are most likely ID cards of people who have either migrated or are dead. but almost 40 ID cards in that what I would say local authority area are missing. Currently, 3 staffers I understand are on administrative leave, and the police was called in. But while people might face the courts for these missing ID cards, the greater damage is that these ID cards will very well or may very well turn up to be used in the local government elections. Any remarks on the cases that will be coming up on this new information of missing ID cards? Sir?
Well, I already answered the missing ID card, Pim. No. I'll wait for the court rulings, and then I won't speculate on what the court will do.
Very well, but do you see there's some people who are believing that, listen, because these cases are not called as yet or are soon to be called, well, one ruling is soon to be given, and then there's another case which was taken to court just recently. I think the counsel in that matter is Linden, Amsterdam. Do you believe that these cases have the possibility of causing the cancellation or postponement of the elections?
I won't comment until I hear the rulings of the court. I'll wait.
Very well. Let me ask you this, because I heard in the news that the commission is in Canada observing the printing of ballots. Can you recall in the history of elections in Guyana, if ballots were printed and elections cancelled before?
No. That may have happened in 1990. Because the 1990 election was cancelled until 1992. And that may have happened. It may have happened then.
All right, so we are in murky waters. We don't know where we're going yet. We don't know where we are going as yet. Good. Recently, Dr. Hines, I don't know, well, it has been so long, I don't think we spoke about this. But that new spy bill in Parliament, 1, and 2, the government is now legislating for what I call control of NGOs. Have you noticed that? The passage of legislation or the, what should I say? Indication that legislation is going to be passed to govern the operation of NGOs in terms of them reporting income and sources of income and stuff like that. Is that a new way of trying to muzzle these NGOs like the Consumers Association and those which have been critical of this administration?
It is the obvious conclusion to come to when this government put forward legislation like that.
And that certainly adds to the danger, the attack on freedom of association and freedom of speech.
But that's what installed regimes do. That's what installed regimes do. Normal regimes would, first of all, have some kind of discussion in the public space about new legislation. And they would take into consideration what stakeholders in the society would say, etc., etc. So that's how normal regimes operate. Abnormal regimes operate like the PPP regime. They only bring legislation that will benefit the regime. You see, the PPP says it's governing based on its manifesto. A manifesto is a party document. When you get into government, you now have to govern not based on your manifesto. You also have to govern based on the manifesto of the other parties. You're governing on your manifesto, and that the PPP is clear about that. It says in its first 2 or 3 budgets, it said these budgets are carrying out the promises made in the manifesto. So this is the manifesto governance.
Thank you. We have a call on the line. Call it
Yeah. Good morning, Kadaki, and good morning, Dr. Hines.
Good
And
morning,
thanks
sister.
for your informative program of last night. Now, Kadaki, I was listening to the man who was talking about some lands, and at the same time, we got another blackout. I like today's blackout for West Coast Demerara. All through the night, we had blackout. Anyway, moving along, I'm glad that man was able to bring to the fore the ownership of the land. And we have always got to take track and to like how you were tracked by the technology, you keep tracking something. We Africans have got to put that to the front and all over our body to keep tracking on lands that we have. Because those lands, that is all that our foreparents could have given to us after slavery. And we must keep tracking on it and making mental notes and black and white notes, paper trail. So that as what Dr. Hines said, we'll be able to have our lands back. Because we will be going in. And coming to the press association elections and so, it is good that they have won and so on. But we got to remember prior to technology that we are using and getting our information from like you, Dr. Heinz Sherrod, Mark Rickford Bork. We get valuable and credible information from y'all type of association. Because I could remember when Sharma used to be there in the prior 2016 to 23 years and try to bring out the cries and the plight of the Africans in Guyana. He was beaten on many occasions, and when they see that the beating didn't stop Sharma, the same press association, they moved there and they discontinued Sharma station for 2 times. One time was 2 weeks, and then the next time they did it for 3 months. They even attacked Blackman TV. He could not have broadcasted the nation anything. And now that technology is it, nobody don't really care for the press association because the press association were all biased and going down the way of the PPP government. And in 2020, within the 5 months, we saw where the press association went. And it's only because of the fallout of no irate to a particular press person that you see this, what is going on. So for me, I would be deemed wrong, but I don't care about the press association. For me, what your program gives out, I live by that. And other program like yours, I'm putting all on the same thing. So that is it. And for the victory of the courts, now trying to walk away from the defaming and I don't know what to call them, of Roxton George. They are now trying to sue that they are not a court because they got the full blasphemy of the people in Guyana crying down the courts because of what Roxton George did in the 2020 election. So the courts now got to try to bring themselves out of the miry clay that Roxton George has pushed them into. Somebody spoke about the military votes. The military votes in the Region 4 area where it was allowed did not get a stamp. They didn't stamp one part. They stamped nothing on those military ballots. And everybody would jump and say all kind of things. But that is where President Granger drew the line with Umbrella Boy. Because when the election was finished, it didn't finish, the disciplined forces voted. He came out of the general world and said that used to call the brigadier win the election because all the military vote for the brigadier. And what did they do? They made certain that the opponents that they had at the election, the places of poll in Region 4 and other regions that did that, did not stamp any of the disciplined ballots. Where did it come from? It came from umbrella by James Bond. So when people would get up and say, good, he is a person who has caused this atrocity on the Africans in Guyana, that same boy. I know he does cuss me out, but I don't care because he doesn't have class. He has no deportment to be a lawyer. And if you are a lawyer, look at lawyers, how they would behave, like Nigel Hughes and Rickford, not Rickford, but Rickford Buck, and even this other one, this by, oh gosh, I can't remember his name. Anyway, and this man Peter is abroad, and this man here, I can't remember his name. The deportment that they would behave, you call them laws. But when you listen to something like James Bond cussing people and telling them about the mother and what he ain't gonna do, you know he is no class. So please don't put him in the likes of people with class. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rondell. Thank you for using the program for cuss out people.
Rhonda may be making a mistake between the Guyana Press Association and the Guyana, the regulatory body, which is the, what is called the Guyana National Broadcasting Authority. Yes, she's making she's confusing the GPA with the GNBA. The GNBA is the one that took Sharma of the year. The GPA is not the GPA is an association of journalists. The GNBA is the one that step people of the year. Yeah.
Thank you. Caller, you're live. Caller, you're live.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Amsterdam. Good morning, Dr. Hines. Good morning, everyone in the diaspora. Good morning, all Guyanese. I'd like to pick up on where Sister Rhonda Lane touched on the Press Association. She made some very valid points, and particularly the abuse that was meted out to Mr. Sharma. And Mr. Sharma's abuse was seen all over the world. At one time, the most popular thing coming out of Guyana was Sharma's name. So that was such an abuse of press freedom. And to see now that people are heralding the victory for the Press Association, to be honest, I've never heard of these two individuals. Ms. Ragobir and this other gentleman, I've never heard of them. But I've heard of Kadaki Amsterdam. I've heard of Dr. Hines. I've heard of Rickford Bork. I've heard of Sherrod Duncan. What does that say in the information age? It says a lot. I remember when President Granger was having a regime change, the press wasn't keen to speak on that.
Right.
And sometimes you have to ask yourself, are they ready to fourth estate? And because they have fallen down on the job, now we've got the fifth estate. And right now I'm speaking on the fifth estate. Social media, Guyanese Morning Time is what we call 4.5 or the fifth estate. So when people talk about Press Association, I think Adam Harris is doing a wonderful job. Because he's highlighting the issues that aren't being highlighted. But yet people are heralding this association's victory. I don't know why. I don't know that. Why? Where were they when Sharma was speaking and giving voice to the voiceless? They weren't there. So, while we congratulate that, I want to say sometimes we are our worst enemies, because we tend to congratulate the people who didn't see it fit enough to stand on the mandate which they say they stand on. They cater more to hush money. And that has been the legacy of the Press Association, that they cater more to hush money. And as a result of that, Buxton Morning Show can thrive. Thank goodness. Because had we been depending upon the Press Association, much of what Dr. Hines says would never get the light of day. On another issue, I want to talk about judicial review. Very briefly, judicial review is something we need to pay careful attention to. And as we notice, as a result of this Bishram's case, and I'm going to keep hammering it, this is not about Bishram. This is about the case. And we need to pay attention and read that case. We notice as a result of Bishram case, a lot of judges now are feeling a more liberated sense to exercise the judicial review. And as a result of the Bishram case, you see a cascading, a kind of a kaichor release of rulings in the courts that are favorable to the people. That's because justices are exercising their judicial independence. Justice Young talks about that. The Bishram case is the one that opens those floodgates. The Paul Slows case. All these cases are now, judges are now exercising their judicial independence. Largely because of this Bishram case. And when we begin to study the Bishram case, at least the first page, we begin to understand. Lastly, I was listening to Dr. Hines last evening, and he touched on a multiplicity of topics. One of which I'm going to talk on is, and while I say Dr. Hines touched on it, yesterday evening, Rickford Bork also echoed the same sentiments. And the sentiments which we're hearing between Rickford Bork, Guyanese Morning Time, and Dr. Hines' show is that constitutional wrongs are happening with impunity. And what I am noticing is that somebody could stop it, but it's not being stopped. Now, the question I want to ask people for this morning, the question of the day is, and I notice people have been touching on the question, but not quite delving into it. This impunity of the PPP's violations can be stopped. But for some reason, the people who have their hands on the pulse to stop it aren't doing so. I asked this question before, and I ask it again. There seems to be, and we know there is or there are people who can stop this impunity, but are allowing the PPP to continue. And I'm saying to the PNC, because you are the majority party. And I'm saying to APNU, why aren't you mobilizing the people to stop this runaway impunity of the PPP abusing the Constitution on a daily basis? Why aren't you talking about something? The Bible says faith without works is dead. We cannot pray about moving the PPP. We can't only talk about moving the PPP, but no mobilization is being effected to remove the PPP. Where is the mobilization, Comrade Norton? We cannot say that we want to move the PPP, but we aren't mobilizing the youth. I ask the question again. The GYSM could be mobilized and are not being mobilized. When we talk about politics and political science, and we talk about revolutionary change doesn't come singularly by talking about it. And for the most part, we have been pontificating and not mobilizing. The mobilization part, when will that happen? It's been 23 years overdue. So just in case we think that we have just started, we are 23 years already late. I noticed Dr. Hines and Rickford Borg and Mr. Amsterdam is saying, when are we going to mobilize? I keep hearing that undercurrent. I keep hearing Lincoln Lewis and Dr. Hines and Mr. Amsterdam and talking about resistance. You hear that word resistance lately in the last 2 weeks? Resist. Resist. How are we going to resist, Brother Lincoln? How are we going to resist, Dr. Hines, Mr. Amsterdam, Rickford Borg, Aubrey Norton? We need to get to the youth and have a deliberate program to mobilize the people. We can start by working with constitutional mobilization, and then we can take it from there. Once again, thank you for listening. Thank you for affording me the opportunity to share my views.
Thank you for calling. Dr. Hines.
Well, it's good to hear Brother Coffee's voice after a long time. It's quite refreshing. And I share his sentiments, I always, when you're always saying people not doing anything, I push back against that. Not because I disagree that we are not doing enough. But I always believe it is the leadership, that has to move people. People don't move by themselves. When people move by themselves, it's last resort. It's usually the leadership, that has to inspire people to move. So I share Coffee's sentiment.
Thank you. It's now 9 minutes to the 9 o'clock hour. Let me take some time and remember Stanley Humphrey of the WPA. Stanley has died, Dr. Hines. A lot of people might have been hearing the name Stanley Humphrey for the first time, but those of us who have been around the WPA know Stanley as I know him as an easygoing, hard worker for the party, especially in Linden. Could you share some reflections on who Stanley Humphrey was? For the WPA?
Yeah, Stanley is one of those worker types that came into the WPA in the 70s. Primarily brought in by Walter Rodney Walter and Dr. Thomas and Guyana. They used to go to Linden a lot and hold classes with the workers. And Stanley Humphrey was one of those persons who attended those classes. And they came into the WPA. And I have not met many people who had the kind of political perception that Stanley had. He had a grasp. He had a sense of people. And he could read what a politician would do long before the politician made his move. And, that drew a lot of us to him. But more than that, he was a faithful worker. Even when a lot of the activists migrated, and he became the leading activist in Linden for the WPA. He manfully carried out his job. He never complained. He would travel from Linden every week, come down to executive meetings. He never complained. Very faithful worker. And he showed us what it is to be faithful to an ideal, even when you may disagree with some of the leaders, because I'm sure Stanley would have disagreed with some of us who were leaders over time. He would have disagreed with some of the decisions the party made, but he never abandoned the party. and I will remember him for his faithfulness to the end, to the end, to the end. He would be critical of the leaders. A lot of times he was critical of me. We have a standing joke in the party. In 1985, we had a long walk from Charity to Crabwood Creek and then to Linden. And I was in charge of logistics. And there was a mutiny against me. And Stanley was part of the mutiny. They felt that I was not being democratic in the way I was putting people on the platform and so on. And one party member loved to drive, and I recognized there was a mutiny. And I said to myself, the way to break up the mutiny is to divide them. So one party member loved to drive, so I put that party member in charge of the driving. Mutiny broke up. And Stanley always remember that as what he call wily kind of leadership. But he was that kind of person. I mean, that happened in 1985. And this is 2023, say it's 38 years ago, and he always reminded me of it. So he was also an encyclopedia of the party. And it's one of my regrets that I didn't do some formal interviews with him, because he remembered the party history through those incidents. You know, he is not the intellectual type who will do the research, but you could go to Stanley and he would give you incidents about Guyana, incidents about Walter, about Clive, a lot about Rupert, and so on. And you could piece the party's history together from those incidents. And one of the finest human beings I've met. And my faith in my country, in my region, in the world, is because of people like Stanley. You know, when you look at those brothers, they didn't go to university and all of that stuff, but they develop a sense of politics, a sense of people, a sense of social relations from observation. And Stanley would pull me aside or pull us aside. And he would say, you know, you hear what a man said just now? What's going to happen a couple of weeks from now? And he was usually right. Usually right. And so it is that native intelligence, as I dub it, that I remember Stanley Humphrey for. We will certainly miss him as a party member. The people of Linden who knew him because he was what they call the WPA man in Linden, I am sure they will certainly miss him. But we know that we are enriched as a political community because of people like Stanley Humphrey. So when C.L.R. James recasted Plato's "Every cook can govern," I think Stanley Humphrey fits that mold. That he was a cook, but he was a cook with the smarts about government and politics. And he was a cook who could govern.
Thank you, Dr. Hines. I see Lester Beckles is saying that Stanley was always an opponent of injustice, and skullduggery was his word.
Yes. Lester is quite right about that. Quite right. He was such a champion of what we used to call in the old days the little man. You know? And you imagine Stanley in the company of Walter Rodney and Clive Thomas and Rupnarayan and Andai and Guyana and the doyen, Moses Bagwan, the doyen of the intellectuals at that time. And he wasn't intimidated by them at all. And he would always look to make sure that they do right by the ordinary members of the party. He is a giant of a person, skullduggery. Oh my goodness. He didn't like that at all. Didn't like that at all. One of my best comrades.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hines. It's a minute to the 9 o'clock hour now. I would assume you want to do a wrap up on the discussions we've had.
Well, I want to thank our viewers and callers this morning, those who tuned in last night. You move with the spirit, we are spiritual people. And I didn't realize what we had done last night until this morning. We were having problems with Lincoln's connections, and so I had to resort to commentary. And you were saying some things that you didn't say before, or didn't say in a certain way, but you just press on. And then this morning, to hear our callers and viewers bringing it all together is really an inspiration. As I said just now, it is why people like myself can't afford to abandon the working people, the ordinary people, because without those people, without their intelligence, because what they're in fact doing is hearing something about their own thoughts in what we say, what I said last night, that they're hearing themselves. And so people like myself and yourself become, if you will, vessels for bringing out people's ideas that they have in their minds. I think our brother UC puts it aptly. He said, part of what we do as political activists, as academics, as artists, is to take people's resources. He said, the poet is like a gardener with a water can, nurturing the flowers, taking the people's experiences, refining them, and then giving them back to the people as political nourishment. And so I'm glad that I was able last night and continuing this morning to provide some political nourishment for our people. Because God knows without political nourishment, politics is dead. Politics is dead without political nourishment. Politics is dead without the people, the ordinary people. They clean your eyes in a way. I know I was playing around with something in my head until that brother from Linden called this morning, and I assume he's from Linden, and put the gender relations, put that to me as a way of understanding what is going on with the slave raiding in Linden. So I am humbled, but I am gladdened that we are mobilizing, to use coffee store. We are mobilizing our people, and you can't mobilize people who don't want to be mobilized. And you know that people want to mobilize, and you know that you're mobilizing when you get those sentiments that have been expressed. And I want to say eternal thanks to those who expressed thanks for what I don't want to say what I said, but what I was able to do last night, that you recognize that it may have made a little difference. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Hines. You have politics on tonight, Politics 101. Who's your
Pastor London and I would be rapping tonight.
Very well. So join Dr. Hines
Guys in
tonight at
London.
1900 hours. Yeah, 19 hours tonight, this evening, right here on Kams TV for another program of Politics 101. And of course, I'll be here tomorrow morning, Guyanese morning time. And maybe I'll be able to bring you more on the land grabbing, the thieving, land grabbing, land grab situation in this country. And it's aided and abetted a whole lot by the man who masquerades as the AG. So join me tomorrow and we'll talk more about these things. Remember, on the 15th of July, that's when we have our anniversary celebration. Remember, to buy your tickets, Chico's Din and Dance, live entertainment and so on. I've just added to the entertainment, we love our drums. So we're going to have a session of drums. I tell you, it's going to be a nice, wonderful evening to spend together. So join me on the 15th of July. Let's do that. $10,000 per ticket, inclusive dinner and dance. And on the 12th of July, which is my birthday proper, I'm going to be hosting children. So if you have a child that is 12 years and younger, you can hit me up so that we can reserve a space to that child. They're going to have a day of fun. Well, like a half day from 1 o'clock. Fun. Trampoline, secure, goodies in place, big screen movie, all things that children should be doing in place. So bring them down on the 12th and let's have some fun. In the meantime, have a good time. See you tomorrow morning. See you around. If you have the information, send it. Of course, we will do the necessary to verify and let the world know